it was not only a Western, um, a movie in on safari in Africa. It was also a war movie. I was from this really tiny town, 235 people, but a this phenomenon happened all over the country where you could rent laser discs and videotapes. We had to take the machines home, and no one could afford them. I mean, like I've heard Tarantino speak about this, how when they would recut a movie for TV, and then when you would see we didn't say it specifically, but I knew what we were doing, automatically. I mean, like I knew what he was up to, and bringing that brilliance, that it's like bringing nature into your living room.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Kingdom of Dreams podcast, The Making of Stories. I'm your host, Jawad Mir. Before I introduce my next guest, I just want to take a minute to apologize for not having any episodes in the last almost 2 weeks. A, summer holidays, a lot going on. B, planning on my next film, a lot of work there. Plus, also trying to figure out some new ways of entertaining you guys on this podcast, maybe some live episodes, maybe some news episodes. So that's around the corner, but just wanted to bring that up to you. Today, my guest is editor Byron Smith, who has edited a ridiculous amount of amazing shows, including The House of Cards, Mindhunter, and my personal new favorite, which I never got around to. 1923 stars Harrison Ford and Helen Mirren. We talked about the show, we talked about films, and also the editing workflow that he has had over the years. Without further ado, here's my conversation with Byron Smith. I cannot tell you how much I'm loving 1923. Obviously there's performances, there's production design, there's cinematography, all of that, the collaboration on a film set that happened. But one of the things that I really, really, really enjoy, and I think that makes the series what it is the editing. And what I mean by editing is, obviously, as you know, it's not about just cutting. What I love about the most is long scenes. And it's not like, you have to go back to another scene where there are three stories taking place. You have to give equal amount of time to each scene to get the audience interested. And that wasn't the case, and it just served the story, and that really absorbs you into the characters. And I absolutely love that. So thank you.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you can appreciate how critical editing is. How it is a special place for the audience. It is editors generally, are always just they care about story. Everyone's really passionate about the story, and rather than ego or themselves, or I mean, like when I speak to all my fellow contemporaries, it comes out naturally, and you see it in their posture when we meet, when we have meetings. I'd like to say the American cinema editors, the group, which is not just American cinema editors anymore. It's very international, and the body's really large. And but everyone is really, really passionate about the integrity. The such an industry, this whole entertainment industry is built on professionalism, and and yet sometimes other people that have their duties, the crew members, they kind of like they are specifically, they're always like looking at how was the hair, how was the makeup, how was um a prop, and because they put their passion into that, and but for the editors, then story is the most important paramount thing, and that is so. Yeah, it's nice that you can see it, and editing has
Well,
become this really cool thing recently.
it is,
So
and to be fair, I'm in the business and I've edited a lot, so I see that from my point of view too. I've shot like I've done pretty much every job there is on a production on a film. Maybe not costume and design, but other than that, so it's just these little things that matter, right? And when I was watching it, and I told my wife this story, so I had what's his name? Jim. He has worked with Francis Ford Coppola a few times. He's worked with Steven Spielberg, um, and Robert Zemeckis.
Yeah. Mm.
I had him on. I'm forgetting his last name.
Jim, that is like there's a few of
James
those.
James Rehart.
Yeah.
He's a writer basically, and he was
Yeah.
telling me the story when they were working on Dracula, him and Francis, um,
Mm.
and he said the story that when Francis had the screening of Godfather Part II,
Mm-hmm.
which is where it goes back and forth into past and present, the Corleone family, like Robert De Niro and Al
Yeah.
Pacino.
Yeah.
The very first response by the audience was very, very negative. And it was the
Yeah.
exact same film in terms of the duration. And
Mm-hmm.
Francis and his editor, couldn't figure out what the hell was going on. And then it hit them that the film switched back and forth too much very
Mm.
quickly. So the audience,
Mm.
and all they did was they stretched
Mm.
out each time period from 10 minutes to 20 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
and the film worked. So, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what this reminded me of. That's what I was telling my wife
Good.
earlier this week, that it just, yeah, I mean, I just absolutely, like, yeah, I can just keep on going. It's just, it's fabulous, man. And the
That's a
characters are
beautiful
great.
observation. That really is a really interesting bit of workshop that you realized. The how um when you are able to live with some characters and kind of get to know them a little bit rather than getting tossed around like a rag doll going from point of view to point of view, which happens a lot, can be the temptation in television often because uh, studios are motivated. They want to get the largest audience that they possibly can.
Hmm.
Uh, they don't have confidence that every demographic will want to watch a man or a female character, and so they kind of want everyone to feel included, and they want to try to please everyone all the time. And when, but when you can, you know, feel comfortable and kind of like settle in with a story and give patience for a moment, and when you're in service to the audience, they will stay with you. They will hold on, as long as no matter what story that is, when it's done and crafted correctly, carefully, the audience will stay with you, even if it is not someone that you may particularly strictly identify with or um, be attracted to just for, you know, an image. So
Yeah.
and it's funny because you mentioned the Godfather series because I mean like the first and the second you can pull up any clip and it would be hard to um it may be hard to frankly know which movie you are in because they're almost like it is one big piece. So I mean like it is funny that I didn't really know the little story that you just told me, but I've been there and I've been kind of through in that before, in a situation where it was just like, hmm, the flow overall is not something's not quite right.
Mm.
And yeah, the there's editing is a complex process. It is a complex, and the tools are very powerful, and all of the things that you utilize are incredibly powerful, and a little bit can go a long way. You got to be careful. And getting to know through with some time, some experience, and some patience, you can, you know, construct a movie better. Yeah.
Couldn't agree
Um,
with you more. Couldn't agree with you more, man. We'll get back to 1923 in a second. What I'm really fascinated with now is that people in this business, you know, sometimes we kind of get involved in what we're doing, that
mhm,
and that it happens to me all the time, that we forget
mhm,
where we have come to from where. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we really have to think hard, like, oh my God, even if I don't have an Oscar or even if I don't have a Golden Globe or whatever that Emmy, look how much path that I have walked on and what I've gone
Mm-hmm.
through. Looking back in life, what was that moment, if you can remember, that made you realize this is what you want to do? Or was it completely accidental?
Mm-hmm. Oh, there was a decision. Yeah, you're right. I came from a small town. Um,
Which town?
I came from the Midwest, a small kind of a farm agricultural town area called Springfield, Missouri, in the
Mm,
Ozarks.
mm-hmm.
In the real, I was actually kind of like outside of Springfield in a very small town. My first town, there were 235 people. Um, but I would go to Springfield and get a chance to see movies in cinema or a drive-in movie theater where a story was told, larger than life on the big screen, and it captivated me coming from such a small environment. And
Which which film was it particularly, if it was? Sorry to interrupt you.
um, there's um, the seeing movies in cinema, it goes back to the days of when we were, had more primitive civilization. We've always been telling stories around the campfire. It's something, and it's a way we keep our memories alive. Uh, it is a way that we educate each other and we pass history down from one to the next. And I loved, just overall the presentation of cinema. Um, I knew I could tell something was going on that really was about the storytelling. My and my family, coming from the Ozarks, storytelling is a part of daily life still, and the way your dad might tell a joke, the way your grandpa might tell about their childhood. The that was really close when you grow up in the Ozarks. That was something close to
Mm,
me. And so, and so the movies, really grabbed my attention, and I knew I wanted to be an editor. Um, and I'm trying to really remember, um, because it wasn't one movie, but I definitely do remember when I was 5 how E.T. was a big
mm,
influence, and I saw it in a drive-in movie theater. In another small town. I think there was one in Aurora, Missouri. Um, I think I probably saw it maybe there, or maybe it was outside of Springfield, in literally, a farm field, where one was set up. That is how I saw E.T., and that really, you know, made an imprint on me at a young age because I was about, I was 4 or 5 or younger when it came out. And um, that one seemed very vivid to me. And my memory of seeing ET is very vivid as when we imagine that movie or that character, the light on his finger or the glow that he has behind him when he comes out of a spaceship or when he's returning on his spaceship to his community, his friends, and those things stick with you. Even the way E.T. begins, when it starts with a chase, and
mm,
these men, and you never really see these men, these adult men that are going to capture this creature, and there's rushing through the woods and tearing through branches, and the sounds of keys on this man's belt loop, as he's running. I mean, that really, really, hit me, and it even, at that age. And it's funny because then a lifetime later, and how the circle completes or continues. I sat my son down when he was about 6. Because all these Jurassic Parks were coming out, so I sat down. I sat my son in front of Jurassic Park, the original, and I realized how Jurassic Park begins when they are make this offering of a goat to a caged predator.
Velociraptor, yeah.
Yeah, you don't see any of it. It's just similar. Really, really, it's like you can put the beginning of ET and the beginning of Jurassic Park and really capture the parallels of those two beginnings, that have come from from Spielberg, the same filmmaker. You know,
I
and
I
different
would argue
editors, but
I
yeah.
would argue sorry, I would argue Jaws as well, but go on.
Yeah, because I didn't see Jaws until I was, that was probably too frightening. Back then, when movies left the theater, they often didn't come back. There was no other way to see them again.
Yeah, yeah.
It wasn't until now, and I remember when I was telling a friend um the other day, because I have another friend from the 80s. His name's Lance, who I was telling him we just kind of like talking about our childhood and what we had in the 80s and we didn't know. And we were talking about videotapes and
Mm.
rental houses and I was even telling him about laser discs. I was from this really tiny town, 235 people, but a this phenomenon happened all over the country where you could rent laser discs and videotapes. We had to take the machines home. No one could afford them. They were $400 for a VCR. Like that's ridiculous. And yeah, it was. I mean, like I've heard Tarantino speak about this, how when they would recut a movie for TV, and then when you would see Jaws cut for TV was probably not nearly the same, as it was in cinema. So it's funny that you mentioned Jaws because I didn't see it until so much later. Even though when I won a Student Eddie Award, um, funny enough, the evening that I won that award at the Beverly Hilton for the American Cinema Editors, this was like when I first came to LA. I'd only been in Los Angeles a few months. And then here I was at American Film Institute, and I entered as such an amateur, and I won the Student Eddie Award in the Beverly Hilton Ballroom um, there at the corner of Wilshire and Santa Monica. Um, I'm in the ballroom, and I didn't know what to say when I accepted the award, but I couldn't believe it because actually Steven Spielberg was in the room. They were honoring Robert Zemeckis that evening.
Mm.
Um, and or they weren't. I mean, no, no. Robert Zemeckis was also in the room. They were honoring um no, they were honoring Zemeckis. Sorry, I was going to say it was actually the Golden Eddie, I think. But then anyway, I couldn't believe, here I was, and I actually accepted an award. Then the editor of Jaws came up to me afterwards and congratulated me.
Oh,
I mean, like, and she was definitely close to retirement, at the time, and she was actually even like a supervisor for a studio. Um, and that was pretty powerful. That was pretty classy, I mean, like because when we lose these people, we lose something forever. And I spoke about that with Robin Wright, when we were like editing one of her episodes of House of Cards. We were speaking about Andre the Giant because he had been in Princess Bride with her, and he passed away. And when we learned, and she was in the room with me, and um, she recounted a story about how he kept her warm because she was this young girl, and like her body couldn't regulate her body temperature. They were shooting out in the freezing cold, and he would have these large hands and warm her. And but then that we went on to other stories, and she recounted things from things like Princess Bride, who where you had to slow down and think more when we had just film because the camera would spool out. A roll of film would only be like around 9.5 minutes. And then you kind of have to slow down. You have to stop, and everybody has to kind of like let their guard down and reload the camera rather than what how it is today when I get 8 or 9 hours of footage because they just don't even turn the cameras off.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm. But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Trying to loop back the first.
No, no,
Yeah.
no. This is
That
fabulous
was
because I became a director because of Jurassic Park. Like
yeah.
that's when it went for, I yeah, that my entire life has been, you know, I ca- movies are everything, storytelling is everything for me. And I think I've been blessed to be able to figure that out, and I'm still figuring it out every single day. And this podcast, I mean, this is like the 258th or 59th episode that I'm doing with you. And
Wow.
the amount of knowledge that I have gained, and I'm still gaining every freaking day.
Hmm.
All these books are phenomenal, they're great, but when I talk to people that are in the industry who've been around for so long, and even if they're not, but they all have stories, people who've made mistakes, what they did wrong, what they did right, et cetera, et cetera. It's like almost equivalent to like a PhD in my view, right? Because you're just
Right.
gaining so much now. And that's what this is all about, and just appreciating
You're
art and storytelling.
you're practicing, aren't you? It is like you are a um we're all students and we're constantly students of life and we're students of storytelling and that never ends. And when you create something on set, it won't ever happen again just like that. And all these filmmakers and even the greats that I've been able to learn from and be in the cutting room hours and hours at the cutting room with you know they all have the vulnerabilities or they share that at some moment. They really do. And I mean I mean even sometimes you know when we're figuring things out with someone like David Fincher, it's really fascinating that we kind of have to take a step back and ask ourselves again and be a devil's advocate and say, how does this all work?
Mm,
And that's how why on Mindhunter we would gather in the room. Sometimes we would put 10 hours of a movie on screen. We would watch it all, even though it was 10 episodes for a season, we would watch them in succession as if it were just one, you know, running movie. And all these filmmakers, they have more vulnerabilities than you think, and they show that vulnerability. The kind of thing that you feel as a director yourself, and when you are exploring this, powerful storytelling tool, cinema, then you are um, doing it for the first time. You're an explorer, even though it's been happening for such a long time. And you don't learn until you're really driving. You can read those books,
yeah.
and you can look at clips, but what we are, where you really learn is kind of like when you learn how to drive a car, and you learn by doing, and that is the only way. And even now, I mean, I'll say it, the kids have it so lucky, and because everybody has a movie studio in their
Hmm.
pocket with your smartphone. Everybody, and I'm like, because when I was in college, when I was in grad school at AFI, at the American Film Institute, checking out a camera was like a big deal, and that was the only way. And once you even, you know, lend something and captured it on media, then it was like an engineering process to put it on a machine, on the Avid, so you can manipulate it, edit it, and you can tell that story. It's
Yeah.
it's it it. it never changes. And I mean, like, it's funny even because I would have filmmakers, like really incredible filmmakers that I was like working with, people like Carl Franklin, magnificent director. I would see him, we could hear Fincher coming down the hallway to the cutting room, and like Carl would shift in the seat and he'd get ready, and he'd be like, oh boy, here we go, and kind of like, and he's not the only one. Every other, James Foley would be that way. And,
Mm,
I mean, like, Joel Schumacher would be that way. And it was always astounding too. It's really, Fincher's just such a film school. He's such a huge resource. And I mean, like, I had this amazing learning curve with him because we would be in the room and he would have his cat toy, the laser pointer, and we'd be looking at the screen, we'd be improving the film, the cinematography, we would be, reshaping and forming it. And I learned his second nature, his style of how to treat the photograph. Um, and he would say these amazing things about like people like Joel Schumacher. There was a scene once that he said, "This is really well directed." And I mean, like, it was really funny. I'm like, it was. He said, "This is really well staged." And then I looked deeper into that scene. It's in House of Cards, and I looked more closely, and I really can see that versus how a lot of dailies I get today. And I've had the luxury of working with 100 directors, I think, by now, and I get a new director every week or every month, and sometimes I get two, sometimes I get three. A lot of times I'm juggling directors at the same time. Um, TV and projects like 1923 and so many others. You're doing more movie than once at the same
yeah,
time. Even
yeah.
on House of Cards, we would shoot in blocks, and I have to think about, I would get two episodes at the same time. I'd get dailies for 20 days. And so I would not only be getting dailies, I have to also think about two beginnings, two middles, and two endings. And I'm simultaneously editing two movies at the same time, two parallels. It is, and that funny cliche that always makes you laugh is like, oh, they've done a lot of work, or they've done TV, but have they ever done a movie? But actually, it's
Mm,
the other way around now. It's like, oh, so they've done a lot of powerful movies. They've maybe won an Oscar, but have they ever done TV? Have they ever done, you
yeah.
know, this kind of new form of original programming? Because I really am, because sometimes the studio is throwing multiple projects at me, a complete, I'll be editing a story about a woman with breast cancer, and it's on one machine, and at the same time, then I have a courtroom drama with a police investigator, just a mouse click away, and I switch from one avid to another. And I just switch gears in a blink. So
That's
yeah, it's
that's
it's ongoing. Yeah. And yeah, it's a really lucky thing. I mean, like Tom Hanks once said, he's like, he kind of just sat back and he's like, can you believe what we're doing? He's like, can you believe what we're doing? I mean, even Fincher like told me a story, because and what Tom Hanks was like, can you believe we're getting paid to do this? That we're storytelling and we're getting paid to do it. That's what Hanks meant. And then at the same time, because Fincher once, kind of shared how he wanted to do another take, and he's known for doing a lot of
yeah.
take and a lot of takes. And one time he said to Brad Pitt, like, and Pitt didn't want to do it again, or I did, but he was kind of like, why? He was kind of like wondering how many more they were going to do. And and David just told me, he said to Brad, he just said, hey, well, this is better than digging ditches, isn't it? Um, he said it in a way that is just really in his tone that just makes you, you know, smile,
But it's
I mean, because
it's
it happened again later, even on House of Cards, I mean, like once I said, how did you get this character this big movie star to do it 45 times? And he said, oh, I went over to them and I said, I want you to do it again. And like somebody said, oh, that's what they asked. They said, David, tell me what you want. I can do anything. I'll do any performance that you want. I can do it. Just tell me what you want." And Fincher just kind of like paused and said, "I want you to do it again." And he went back to the video village. So um, we're always learning. We're all students, and we're always learning.
And it's so
Um,
true what you said about Tom Hanks, what he said. It's something, a conversation that my cinematographer and I were friends to for the last 20 years almost. We have these conversations to how lucky are we that we're getting
yeah.
paid to do what we love and we're traveling the world to do what we love and getting our expenses taken care of. I mean, these are little things that you don't think about, right? Like how many jobs, like people get paid to travel, yes, but do they actually love their job? How many do? Maybe
Hmm.
there is a good percentage, but in our medium, I think it's not somebody is just forced to do what they're doing. They've made a choice to be in this profession because it's not an easy profession to be in. It's so true. And kind of touching upon you touched upon 1923, which I'm glad you did because I want to go back to it. We'll talk about like some of the most challenging stuff that you had to deal with in terms of editing. But one thing I really appreciated, and listen, I love David Fincher's films. I really do. I think he's one of the most amazing storytellers. But one of the things that he did, which everybody else started adapting, is all these monotone colors in the films, like like
Yeah.
desaturated colors. And I would watch that from David Fincher any day. But anybody, because his films have that feeling to it too, that tone that deserves that
Hmm.
desaturation of color. So many of other stuff that's out there that they don't need that, but they do. But 1923 was refreshing to see not to have that. I mean, it felt like I was watching a series shot on film. And the
Well, it's like a
colors,
Technicolor. It's like the old days. It's
yeah,
like yeah, yeah. It's like The
right?
Searchers or one of these John Ford movies. In Monument Valley, that Ben Richardson, that cinematographer, on 19 and director. He's my director on 1923. We didn't say it specifically, but I knew what we were doing. Automatically. I mean, like I knew what he was up to, and bringing that brilliance that you know it's like bringing nature into your living room, and you
Yes.
really capture the scope. Yeah, yeah. It's like, I mean, that's that camp of filmmakers who does Yellowstone, they do 1923. That is, they are making it's part it's part of what they're presenting. They know their audience. They know their audience, and they are bringing um you know that you know life as a cowboy to your living room, and so you feel that dust. You feel like you're riding on a horse. I mean, sometimes when I'm done watching one of these episodes on 1923, I'm like, "Ooh, I was on the road. I was on the trail for a while," because I felt like I was with them. And yeah, right. It's nice to see color, get
Yeah.
bathed in that lush saturation, like the old Technicolor days sometimes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think audience wants that, right? If you look at films like Barbie, I mean, yeah, it was an entertaining film, but I truly believe one of the reasons it did really well was because of the amount of color that was in there.
Mm-hmm.
Even the most recent Jurassic Park Rebirth, which was shot on film, I mean, it looks like I'm watching something from the 90s, right? And
Yeah.
so that really tells a story. But on 1923, working on it, and we kind of touched upon these long scenes, and there's essentially three stories that are
Mm-hmm.
at least from. I mean, I know they're all connected, but at least right now there are two connected up to the episodes that I've seen. Um, what was the most challenging part in doing so, in putting together 1923, whether it was an episode or the entire series, as well as what was one thing that you learned about yourself the most as a human being after working on 1923?
I really, boy, I was really excited that I was going to work on a Western. I mean, like I really had not done a Western, and I mean, I was really completely enthused. I mean, like, and I really love Westerns. I kind of grew up on farms. I used to milk cows. I used to herd. Um, I used to I used to herd cows on both horseback and in a truck with, and I would sit. I was the tallest one. Um, so I was the one that drove the truck and had to learn how to shift a Ford pickup, when I was like
Yeah, yeah.
eight, when I was like too early, 8 years old. And I'm glad we were just in a field. And so I was so excited and so happy to be making a Western finally, and um, to kind of like get in that dirt. And um, the hardest part was almost something that there was a lot of so many unknowns, and we were just really, and it happens a lot in my line of work. You get thrown into something and they don't tell you absolutely, they tell you nothing. They give you a script, and they don't tell you, you don't may not really know the tone. You may not really know what kind of style do we want. Do you want this like Yellowstone or not? And then, there were a lot of big unknowns, and automatically, and like while I said that I was going to edit a Western, we started in Africa, and it was almost also exciting. And here you are, you've got a hunter who's working for the protectorate. He's uh, you know, keeping people safe. And they've got this leopard, this panther, this leopard that jumps out of the darkness. And that was a really and of course we had just a CGI cat, and we had like a puppet, and we had like a stuffed animal. Essentially, I mean, like, just to be fundamental and rudimentary,
Mm.
they were the nicest um, props you could ever ask for. But then, you to have the leopard, how is it gonna attack this person? How is it gonna, and I mean, this schedule, we were flying. I mean, like, we were behind from, the word go. I mean, so, and it was, I edited it in a matter of, days. And um it was almost done as soon as it began. But so it was, and here I am trying to like put like more of a House of Cards feeling into these moments, like when they go back to the tent, and someone's been killed, by this wild predator. And you know and you have a standoff, and so it's trying to fit that in, and give that, its moment to really, really digest it, to really, bring it up. And then, and at the same time, let's turn this over for visual effects department. And then it was not only a Western, um a movie in on safari in Africa. It was also a war movie, World War I. And then, I'm getting this footage in, and seeing um this stuff that looks like it's going to be it's going to take a big effort to pull this off. We're
Mm.
going to need a lot of art done very, very in very short time. And so I need to cut this, you know in a moment, and get it to visual effects so they can start doing their work. I've got to deliver it, have it locked, and or in a place, because it's going to take some time to make some removals, to remove some crew, to put in, to enhance moments on the battlefield, enhance the leopard, um, and get everything approved. So, as an editor, you have to be able to, I know a lot of, huge Oscar-winning editors that cannot do it. I know, I've just been told, and they've just told me, they've admitted, like, I can't do that. I can't. I mean, even one of my early mentors would tell me, how long it takes to edit a film, but compared to what the way I do it, I mean, like, I sit down. I've honestly, I've gone and spoken to students at a school, and I've broken a scene down with them without ever um, reading the script before. I'll just pull up, just log in and say, hey, we're going to cut a scene together. I'm going to break down a scene together with you, and I don't know what I'm doing. And, an assistant gave me these dailies. Let's look at it, and we're going to cut a page. We're going to cut a page and a half in 15 minutes in the amount of time of this class. And so I've done it, and like I just demonstrated. I'm like, as an editor and as, um, you know, an editor in this world of streaming, I'm kind of like going to the treasure, and how I do it, and I work differently, and I'm kind of like a battlefield lieutenant. So 1923 was like that every day, and actually, like I'm working on something that is like that now as well, which is really exciting. But 1923, um, there's another scene, another real big challenging scene in 1923 in episode 4 when Harrison Ford's character rounded up the sheep herders that are grazing on his land, and they
Mm-hmm.
hang them. They the getting when sometimes the things you get, you're going to get less than you realize, um, than you could imagine, and we didn't get much. And so here we got these characters. We've got this one character who's on his horse with a noose around his neck, and if his horse moves out from under him, then he's going to break his neck and he's going to die and be hanged. And so there's all kinds of safety in that kind of a stunt. There's cables, ropes, things that needed to be removed. And then the cable is dancing around back there in the branches of the tree that he's under. The um, the continuity of the horse, um
Yeah.
the and here we are trying to create some tension and stretch that rubber band tighter and tighter, and um that scene was definitely of all of my time on 1923. That sequence was the most challenging, but I'm really proud with how it ended up. I mean, like, that's my cut, you know,
Yeah.
completely.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's you should be proud of yourself because the story of the characters kind of revolve around that too, about around that whole attack and everything that leads up to that attack. Um, what was the one thing that you learned about yourself as a human being, just to kind of as we wrap things up?
On 1923, what did I learn about myself?
Mm-hmm.
Just I've been around. I've been doing this for a long time, and I've worked with so many different people. Even like Steven Soderbergh once took an episode. I was working on something with Venture. Steven Soderbergh took my cut and then handed it back to me. And it was 4 minutes long. It went from 30 minutes to 4 minutes. And I'm just mentioning that because that was really funny. But
Mm.
also, like, I've been able to like gather a lot from a lot of different perspectives and a lot of different viewpoints. And so when I come to 1923, I'm ready, and I'm like, I'm kind of like, I'm going to be teaching the people I'm going to be working with, but not to make them feel intimidated, which I don't. I'm like very welcoming. But like when we start on 1923, um, and it is going to be this very grueling, very, very speedy schedule. I'm kind of like, I'm going to stay ahead of the ball. And what I really learned about myself is just I kind of just like fortified my confidence, that like and so I know to speak my heart for the goodness of the audience, for the goodness of cinema, for the goodness for the best benefit of everyone who's going to enjoy this. I don't know that um I really that show I kind of really have to search you
That's
know
fine. No worries.
it's
Uh,
like it was a really great practice in patience. The show was a
mm,
great practice in patience.
that's a
And
good one.
yeah, you can always, it is another thing we're constantly practicing. And no, it doesn't matter who you are, what your job is. You may be a school teacher, you may be a garbage collector. Everyone has to have patience, don't they?
Agreed.
So
Agreed.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
They go
And
the patience and meeting deadlines kind of go hand in hand in a very bizarre way because
isn't that funny? Isn't that funny? Yeah, it's
you
kind of
can't
like
meet
it's
deadlines
saying,
without being patient.
yeah, it's like saying, oh, that guy was short. He was kind of short. He was kind of short, tallish guy, and he was kind of like a skinny,
Yeah.
fat dude, And it's because I actually say that. I'm even working on a scene right now. Producer is in the UK, and I said to him, and like I get this kind of like action moment, and I said, I'm gonna tighten it, but I'm gonna kind of live in the moment a little more. I said that to him. I said I'm gonna tighten it, but I'm gonna live in I'm gonna
That's
expand the moment a little
that's a nice
more. And he's
quote.
like,
That's I like that.
yeah, yep, we do it
What are
all the
you
time.
what are you working on if that's unless that's something top secret?
I'm really excited about this project for Apple TV
Mm.
called Lucky. Um, Inya Taylor Joy is starring in it with an amazing cast that includes Annette Bening and Timothy Oliphant. It
Mm.
has a new actor named Drew, um, and it is blowing my socks off. I could not believe I'm working on this show. It's going to blow up. I have not been this excited about a project since I was working on Under the Banner of Heaven for FX, with
Mm.
Andrew Garfield. And that was, I don't know if everybody saw that finale. I was really proud of it, and it was an over hour long. And so this is back up there, and it's really gripping. It's really got a hold of me. I am working with the director. Her name is Jet Wilkinson, and if you don't know who she is, you have seen some of her work, and you're definitely going to know her. She is a fierce storm, and working with her, she puts her whole soul into it, in a way that I don't see many directors do, and she brings such enthusiasm and pride to her work, and we are gonna you know, blow people away. It's really exciting. I'm like, it's not going to be out for a while, but we are cooking, and it's. I'm just like every episode of it. I'm like, well, I want to see the next one. I want to see the next one, and
Mm.
we're having a really great time.
Fabulous. So
Yeah,
I'm assuming that'll probably come out later, if not early next year.
I don't even know. You know what?
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's hard to even say. Um, because no, there's no idea. It's in the trades. It's something to search for, and find more about it, and like there's a lot of there's a lot being made right now. But I mean, like, here it is on the Apple website right here. Apple TV
Yeah,
Plus
I just
announces
saw it.
Lucky new
Yeah.
limited series, and right there with Anya Taylor-Joy, and produced by Reese Witherspoon. Yep, it's
Ah.
Reese. I've been working with her company quite a bit lately. They've been really friendly, and Lauren Newstetter there. Lauren Newstetter is she runs a really tight ship, and she is kicking some butt, and she um you know is so lovely that they needed an extra hand on Lucky, and she asked for me. I was kind of just finishing up on a Jen Gardner show with her, actually at the same time. Almost like right down the hallway. But Lucky is written and created by Jonathan Tropper. And Jonathan Tropper, if you need to, like, if you search what he's up to, right now I don't know where he is in the world. I mean, because he is on the move. I mean,
Mm.
he is because he's working with John Hamm on Your Friends and Neighbors. He's working on a lot of other exciting things. So, and he and his staff, people like Cassie, Papa, they know what they're doing. We're in good hands, and there's so much talent behind it. And I'm telling you, Jet, she's like She's a big director now, and I mean, she is to work with. It takes a special crew. It takes a special editor to work with someone, like her, because she commands your best, because she deserves
Mm,
your best, because she's giving you her best to you
sure.
in return, and she um, really is not in this for fame or her ego. She it cares only about the story, and people are recognizing it. She's doing a spinoff for Handmaid's Tale at the same time while I was finishing up her edit. Um, Unlucky, she was already off um, shooting. Um, another exciting spinoff.
No, that's
You know,
exciting, man. That's really good. There's a lot going on
yeah,
for you, which is awesome.
yeah.
I look forward to, maybe talking about another series, maybe Lucky, maybe another one from the past. I have only seen, I mean, if my memory serves me right, I haven't seen True Detective, I haven't seen Mindhunter, I've seen House
Hmm.
of Cards except the last season, obviously 1923 now. So there's a lot to chat about, and I really commend you for what you're doing because I know the amount of work that goes into editing. And it's not that it's an impossible or daunting task, it's not an easy task. And to be able to do multiple shows or multiple episodes simultaneously, kudos to you.
Thank you. Thanks so much. It's really great to visit with you. I
Yeah.
appreciate you, bringing me on and getting to talk about what I love. So thanks. Thanks
No,
for
no,
making your
man.
time.
Thank you. And we'll love to talk to you again. If you're in LA, right?
Yes. Yep.
I,
Yep. I'm
I,
based here.
I do come to LA every few months, every 2, 3 months, and I'm due for
Yeah.
a trip this month or next month. So if I'm around and if you're around, maybe we can grab a coffee.
I'd love that. Yeah. Come on by. Come on by. If there's a coffee shop, we can walk right over.
Amazing, man.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you, Jawad. See you.
Bye bye.